Welcome to the Dental and Mental Podcast. I'm Dr. Galen Detrik.
I'm Dr. Davina Detrik.
And we are going to be talking to you about the business and the mindset of dentistry.
Welcome to the Dental and Mental Podcast.
I'm Dr. Galen Detrik.
I'm Dr. Davina Detrik.
How you doing, baby?
I'm good. How about you?
I'm doing fantastic.
It's been a minute.
It's been a minute,
Yeah.
as they say. I know we had holidays, right? Yeah. Christmas, New Year's, all
Right.
kinds of things.
Yep.
Very busy start to 2025.
Ooh.
Chaotic start to
Yeah.
2025, right?
Yeah. You sent me a review. So the Practice Vita Dental Practice, you guys are pretty in line with getting reviews from people. Like that's a priority for you guys, right?
Yeah,
Like
gotcha.
you guys like to build up those
I know what you're
reviews.
talking about now.
Okay.
Mhm.
You sent me something the other day where a patient left you a pretty negative review, 1 star.
Yep.
And the thing that was different
Which
about
was
a
a 5-star to start, actually.
Okay. Oh,
And
yeah.
she
Okay.
just randomly changed it. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So it started off as a 5-star, went to a 1-star.
Mm-hmm.
And normally, the way I have seen you and Devin respond to those has been very like PC.
I'm not trying to start something.
Yeah. Like, we're not trying to go to war. Like, sorry you feel this way. We hope you have a good life. Wish you the best. Right? Kind of like that.
Yeah.
Your response this time was like spicy.
It was, yeah. It had some bite to it.
Your response to the review was was a lot more spicy than what it usually is. So why is it a new year, new me? Like what's going on at Vita?
The first piece is we have a team member who is responsible for responding to all of them, so that the responses are organic. It's not just a robot response.
Or versus like somebody outside of the office, like
Correct.
a company or something. Okay.
Well, and then part of that too is, even though the responses, you run out of ways of saying thank you to some degree, right? So there is some repetitiveness and redundancy to the way that we respond through this team member, but it does keep a very good pulse on what's being said, so that we're not relying on a third party to do that, and we never have any pulse on what's going on. It's kind of nice to have a team member who tells you, hey, this is the feedback that we're getting. Great job. Keep going. And they'll send screenshots to us so that we're not sitting there constantly. Now, that being said, Devin is very maniacal about reviews, which I love. And so whenever we get a good one that really kind of stands out, he's very good about screenshotting that, sending it to the team, which is, I think, a good thing. Like, I think for dentists in general, they usually shop that whole process out. And then when you get a bad one, they like freak out about everything, which is normal. I think that's a normal response we can have. But it's important to share those good ones and tell a team like, great job. So-and-so cited out Vanessa, said that it was an awesome experience with you. So until you keep going, right? Like that positive reinforcement is an important element. This one, of course, whenever it's a negative one, you kind of spice senses go up, and the first question you usually ask is like, who is this person? Did we really see them? Is this an accurate review? Then you're thinking, did we screw up in some way? Like what happened? So anyway, the review was posted as a 5-star first, then it turned into a 1-star, which is still kind of mysterious why that happened. Devin brought me over to his office and was like, dude, what should we say to this? And I was like, what are you talking about? So he showed me the review, and sometimes you're in the mood to just tell a person to go piss off. And that's where I was at. I mean, this 2025 in general has kind of had that flavor for us. And so I told him, I was like, well, okay, like give me the history. So we went through her charting and who had seen her last, and he and I had both seen her, I think each just once, and had recommended like a crown. And she just freaked out about the price and all the rest. And she'd had a problem with our third party who does all of our membership plans.
Okay.
She kept getting charged for something. It's because she never canceled her membership plan, which we don't do. She does that. So anyway, it was like, okay, just an easy thing to communicate with us.
You mean my dentist can't cancel my Netflix?
It's tough. we could. Yeah, it's like, okay, take some ownership, but also maybe just call us, right? Like call us and say, hey, I'm having an issue with this. And so anyway, long story short, she has all these problems, doesn't want to own up to any of them, hides behind her keyboard and writes this review and feels the need to also go do the exact same thing, carbon copy, on Yelp and Nextdoor and anywhere else she can go. And so Devin and I are both like, I think she needs to be put in her place. That's just kind of what we felt, right? It was inaccurate. You didn't want to talk to us, so I think we kind of need to tell you what's up. So he asked what we should write, and there's one dentist that he's somewhere in the Midwest. He's the best responses to reviews. That guy gives zero shits.
Oh my gosh, that guy needs to be on TikTok.
He does. What he says to people, sometimes maybe a little bit too far, but most of the time it's awesome. Most of the time it's like, that is awesome. It's kind of the unfiltered dentist. It's like what you would want to say. What we all say to each other, we're like, oh man, if it was my last week practicing, what would I say to people, you know? And you kind of have that sometimes. Like it's pent up from like the stupidity that you come around sometimes. I was like, well, what would he say? So Devin goes through the response. He's like, he probably would say this, and this. And I was like, well, why don't we just say that? And he's like, should we? And that's the funny part, right? You're bringing up. We're usually kind and like, we better mind our reputation and all the rest. But occasionally the wrong person crosses you. And we were both like, nah, let her have it. So he drafted it up. Devin did all the drafting. I thought it still had a flavor of kindness to it.
It did. I read it, and it wasn't like overtly disrespectful or anything.
Right. There's a difference between trying to ruin a person's life and waking a person up to reality. And I think it did a good job of just saying, hey, the facts are these, and if you want to be crazy, then good luck to your next office that you'll also give a 1-star review to, because that's the kind of person you are. And he mentioned something about like, glass houses, because she has her own business as well. And, anyone who has their own business who has reviews, you're going to get these. And so he made a comment about that, and she was like, is that a threat? And we're not going to go review her.
Right,
it's like,
right.
This is going to come back to bite you, because that's the way it goes.
So this is what I wanted to talk about, because you could have chosen the same response that you guys always go with, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Right, like something like, oh, we're so sorry about that. We wish you luck. Why this? Why now?
So I do think that every one of us has a potential or a range to us. And then there's the range that you're more comfortable with, right? There's the hat that you like to wear. And so maybe that's being kind. I think for a lot of dentists, it's just being kind and more than anything like, we'll deal with it a different day, or I'll shoulder the burden, I'll shoulder the problems. That happens a lot with finances in a practice, right? You're losing money, team members aren't performing the way they need to, whatever it is, and you're like, okay, we'll just absorb it. It's fine. And you kick the can down the road, and that's an easy hat to wear until it becomes really painful. And honestly, one of the things that happens a lot of times, you coach on this, is it has to go somewhere. That energy has to have some expression. And so a lot of times it shows up as stress in your marriage, or the way you're not present with your kids, or the wrong person that you explode on, because it has to go somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think we're comfortable with making the decision oftentimes based upon the person, the patient. We'll try to reach out to them. We'll have our front desk reach out. If we get a negative review, it's a phone call. And I think we've talked about this on one of our podcasts before. Where we got one of those, made a phone call, and the patient felt like we were maybe bribing them, but it was like confusion. And I said, bring her in and let me talk to her. But this is also someone I'd had a relationship with, like who had spent money with us, right? There's a respect there.
Yeah.
And we smoothed it over, and she's super happy now, and everything's great. This person did no dentistry with us and was just pissed off about their own idiocy and their own ignorance, and didn't want to try to solve the problem. They wanted to complain.
Mm-hmm.
That's different, And so I think it's part of the why. But also, for better or for worse, it's been a year, kind of, already. A month in.
So it's January.
It's January. But you agree with me, right?
No, I would. But just for context, other people are like, "What? It's been a year. Like we are, 31 days in."
It's been a year, but I also think, and I mean, everyone has their different opinions on this, but even kind of like the last 4 years, like there's just some. I think we're all kind of tired of some of the like stuff that we've been putting up with. And so this year is more of that, just being stacked on. And I think Devin and I both were feeling like enough's enough. What about, so you deal with dentists all the time. You're constantly talking about this kind of stuff. And would you not agree most dentists kind of come from the same vein of trying to protect their reputation, being maybe too kind? What's the symptom there that you see the most commonly? and what's it stemming from?
Well, I think that dentists in particular, because they're small business owners, and the ones that we work with at least, are really kind, generous, mindful, thoughtful people. I'm not saying this as a profession. I'm saying this the ones that we know personally, the ones that we work with. The majority of them have that characteristic, right? It's really important to them.
Yeah.
Care about their employees. They care. They truly
patient care. It's health care.
Yeah. They truly care. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't care, but I think this idea of having range, you yourself need to know that you can go there if you need to go there. And I think that people get locked into an idea that they have about themselves. The example that I use with clients is if you think about a keyboard and you only have access to 5 keys, the song you're able to play is pretty limited, right? It's pretty limited. Range means that you can go all the way to the start of the keyboard, all the way to the end, and you have access to everything. Now, should you only choose to play on 5 keys because that's your favorite song? Yeah, keep on doing it. But don't keep doing it because you don't think you have access to something else.
So you're really describing a skill set or skill sets, actually. This is something that a person, it's not just it's there, but you actually have to put effort and time into habitualizing or creating some kind of a skill out of this, right? It kind of seems like that's what you're describing.
Yes, because a lot of our personalities are made up of things that we just do over and over again, right? So we're like, oh, I like this. Okay, do you actually like that, or have you just been doing it for 20 years and therefore you know nothing different? So you don't actually know if you like something different. You are just continuing to run in a pattern.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
It's one of the things that I think is really interesting when people are afraid of something that they're not. They're really afraid of turning into that thing overnight, right? Yeah. So people are like, oh my gosh, I'm really worried that if I got really good at something, if I became famous, I would turn into an asshole, right?
Right.
We'll just do something like that,
yeah.
Okay? What if I became famous, I would turn into an asshole? Okay, well, are you an asshole? Well, no. Do you have any references, points that you can look back and say, this is how you've been traditionally over time? Well, no, not really. Okay, so you're just going to get that tomorrow, right? You're just, all of a sudden, you're going to become that.
Yeah.
And usually the people who are worried about becoming this thing is an identifier that you're not going to become that thing. Because assholes aren't concerned about being assholes. They just are them. Right? They're not
They're very comfortable being that.
Yes,
yeah.
they're not like, gee, was I too much of an asshole today or too little of it? I promise you they're not thinking of that.
Yeah,
so people, when they are concerned that something is going to come in and completely change their personality, it's like, well, how many points of reference do you have of completely changing your personality based on one factor happening in your life?
I mean, it's like the fact that they're questioning it, you're essentially saying that that's a good clue you're probably not the thing.
Exactly.
You're not in danger of becoming it overnight.
Right, exactly. Because these people are not thinking about that. They don't care.
Yeah.
And so when I am trying to push a dentist out of their comfort zone, it is not an automatic thing. They actually have to practice creating boundaries. They have to practice sticking up for themselves. They have to be willing to go there. They have to give themselves permission to write a spicy response to a rude review.
So right before you even said that, that's the word that kept coming to me, is this is a problem of permission. And people who do not give themselves the permission to utilize the fullness of the range, a few things happen. The first is, and you and I both love this quote, it's whatever is suppressed will be perversely expressed. It'll find a way out.
Yeah.
And when it does, it's not going to be good. It's usually going to be ugly, right? It can show up as health problems, right? It can show up as…
Well, we talked about this the other day, and you thought I was crazy. Now, whether or not it's true is not what I'm pointing out, because I don't know, because I think I saw it on social media. So take that for what it's worth. We need to fact check this. I don't know. I don't know. But as I was reading it, whether it was true or not was irrelevant. I felt like it was true. You know? It was unverified truth that was verified by nothing more than my intuition.
Well, that's science.
Well, sometimes the only verification I need is intuition.
This is the dental and mental, you know? I mean, let's bring the mental in here. It's either going to be brilliance or psychosis. We're going to find out which one.
Okay, so you and I had this conversation, and I was reading this study Who knows if it was a study, whatever, okay?
This is so good already.
But it was saying that women who do not say what they need to say, like, live less.
Oh, yeah, like longevity.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So it was like years off their life. And
Yeah.
we were in a situation at that point where you did not want to say something because you wanted the perspective of seeing the whole picture.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I do remember this.
And I said, you want me to die.
Actually, verbatim, that is what you said.
Yeah.
That's a direct quote.
Well, if I don't,
Just, you want me to die.
well, if I don't need to say, if I don't get a chance to say what I need to say, it's taking years off my life. How else would I interpret that? You want me to die?
Valid. Yeah. And you felt it. Well, I mean, to that effect, whatever you feel, you know. No, I actually think that there's probably some very real truth to that. To your point, it is anecdotal, and studies is a strong word, but there's been a number of thought processes around this and people who have conjectured that even types of cancer will arise by holding energy in, right? It's a suppression of what you need to say or what you're tolerating. And that is a metaphysical science, I suppose, right? So it's going to be tough to quantify. But personally, I think there's probably a decent amount of truth to that. To think that we're just physical beings is actually very short-sighted.
Yeah.
So,
right.
So yes, I'm sorry for taking years off your life. I will give them back to you. I'll find out how.
You don't have to give them back to me. Just make the ones that I have
Just say
extraordinary.
whatever you want.
No, I'm just saying that the ones that we have, making them extraordinary, right? Like, don't make me go for walks. Take me to Italy, you know?
Why are dentists stuck watching CE that looks like it was made in 1995?
I have lectured from every stage you can possibly imagine. We have created virtual courses around this, and this is the amalgamation of 12 years of practice wrapped into one single course. Not only is it all that you'd ever want to know, but it's also what to charge, how to increase your fees, how to market it, how to photograph it. Fracture is the masterclass that is an homage to the technique that transformed my life and career, that took me from $50 an hour in juvie to a $5 million fee-for-service practice. When you see the price for this course, your jaw should drop. It costs more actually to buy probably a carpal or two of composite to do the class 4 than it does to actually learn everything I just described and so much more. This course, as you can tell, I have tremendous passion and excitement for. Join Fracture today. The permission piece is huge. And when I really think about it, the first person I thought of when we saw this review and we read this review was this American dentist guy. And he gives permission. That's what he's doing, right? And so you can judge people for that all day long. But the reality is, if you are living more repressed and you're not saying what you need to say, you have to be honest with yourselves about the other piece of this puzzle, which is if you say you care so much, that's why you don't do things, and I'm guilty of this, you actually have to realize that the repercussions might harm more than just you.
Right.
And as a result, then, you're actually prioritizing not saying what you need to say to this person and not caring and caring less about the effects that it will have on probably the people that you care most about, whether it's team members, right? Like we've had this in the practice, and I think thankfully we handled it the right way, but I had a patient who really decided to kind of lose her shit in the office and started talking very inappropriately about two of our team members. And instead of trying to calm it down per se and manage this person and let her do that, I told her to get the fuck out of our practice in those words. Because I could not tolerate the way that she was talking about the two people that I cared about that were my team members. Mm-hmm. And it was more important to say something that is probably not so polished to this patient so that my two team members who I'm going to spend way more time with know that I will be a guard dog for you. Mm-hmm. I will stand up for you. And that's more important than this person going and writing a bad review or, trailing me to my car and stabbing my tires. I don't know. Right? Right. And so I think that you have to ask yourself, what really is caring? And sometimes it is to be patient and to be kind and to be sacrificial. And then there's other times where you got to say what you need to say. And
that's the range.
That's the range.
Right? That's the range. You have to be able to trust yourself to have access to both. I mean, part of my my whole job actually is to tell the truth.
Correct.
Right? Correct. I mean, every client that I've ever had at some point has probably had an interaction where I've said something that upset them.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's literally my job. That is my job to point out things that maybe no one else will say to you, that maybe you don't see yourself, that maybe you don't want to hear, that you don't like to hear. That is my job. And my job is to do it in a way that respects the human, but nevertheless, that is my job. So I can't hold back on that because that is truly a disservice.
Yeah. We're going to talk about more of this very specific thing in the part 2 of this podcast. But before we get there, you and I are different in terms of what range we're comfortable with.
Right.
And it's been interesting. I want to hear your 2 cents on this because there's good and bad to it, the way we've handled it. But, your range is definitely a lot more of like, say what needs to be said, be very, very truthful, blunt. And mine's a lot more of, let's get all the puzzle pieces together. Let me see the range of things. Let's make a decision, right? And there's times where both can be very, very useful. But in our marriage, I've had to learn to be more like you. And you've voiced recently too, like at times you've really not changed, but you've adopted a different range with being more patient.
Absolutely.
But at times it can be very frustrating. And we talked about how that's vice versa. What's your experience with that? Kind of talk a little bit about,
Being peaceful is going to kill me. I could feel it in my body, like not saying what I need to say.
I choose violence today.
Not saying what not saying what I need to say. I want to die. Like I can just feel it. Even now I'm talking about it. I'm like, oh my God, like I can feel a physical reaction in my body.
But before you go too far, how many dentists feel the same way about having to say something extremely truthful? Yeah,
right.
The confrontation, it just like you feel in your chest like, oh my gosh, I can't do that.
Right.
It would kill me. That's what they would say.
Yeah, right. So I think the best way to give people an example of this for you and I is that you and I grew up in households that very much match those, right? Your household growing up was very peaceful.
Yeah, at times maybe more synthetic than truthful. There was a lot of truth to it, but there was definitely times where it was completely synthesized.
Right, where you may not be saying something out of fear of hurting somebody else's feelings, so you're just like, nope. Peace and love and rainbows, and my ears are made of wood. Right?
They are very tiny wood ears.
Like my upbringing was the opposite.
Yeah.
Right? It is, what is your biggest insecurity? Thank you, that is your new nickname. Right?
Yeah.
Right? It is saying what you want, and if somebody gets their feelings hurt, it's like, well, that's your problem. Like, I'm just saying whatever I want. So there is a lot of tell it like it is. There's a lot of feelings are stupid and irrelevant, and if you're complaining about it, then that's because you're a whiner and weak and all of that, right? So, So I think it's first important to establish that you and I are very much a product of how we grew up.
Well, even you being an only child and me being one of 5.
Oh,
It's like I have to play in the playground with other people. We have to make sure that it all, it's not just me. And you had a very different experience of like preferences being more like you could have them.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't get that preferences.
Oh, everything I preferred. I could prefer anything I wanted. Also, my mom gave me the opposite advice of other mothers. She's like, don't let anybody play with your toys because if they break them, you're not getting new ones. So
my parents' advice was share your toys, and if they break them, just forgive them.
No, my mom was very much
that Lego set.
No, my mom was like, don't share because if you do and something happens, it's on you.
If you don't share, I'll never buy you anything again. That was mine.
No, I even remember when like my bad cousins would come over. Like they were the ones that was just like naughty, right? Like they were like the worst. And they were like the outskirt cousins. They weren't like the core ones, right? Cool. Like the outskirts. So when they would come over, my mom would be like, go hide all your stuff.
Well, you have no toys. Nope, not one. Exactly. I play with dirt.
Oh, I'd close my bedroom door and I would make sure that they stayed in the living room.
I didn't have my own room.
I had 2. I had a playroom and a bedroom. Okay,
gosh.
but I think the best way, so now that we've painted that picture for you, I think the best way for you and I to explain how we deal with that is family game nights.
I love them.
Galen loves a family game
Who
night.
doesn't love a good family game?
Right? I don't. I don't. For a lot of reasons. So when you play games, it's easy for you to congratulate people and to see what they've done well and to ignore what they have done wrong. Right?
Less so now, but yes, that very much growing up, that was the way it was.
Yeah. So okay, when this was the craziest thing when you and I got married, and this is why I don't like games with your family. And I think maybe I don't like them in general, but I definitely
I don't think you like them in general. But
probably not. I was an only child. I
get
didn't
you.
grow up with games. Like, what a waste.
Having fun, we don't do that. Who wants to have fun?
Nobody feels sorry for my childhood. I loved it.
Yeah.
Okay, but when we play games, and say it's like a trivia game where performance is not based to chance,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Like you have to know the answer or not, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, when we're playing and your sisters say something stupid, it's against everything in my body to not be like, you're so stupid. Like, why would you say that? Like, you don't know anything. But you can't say that. These are like the nicest people ever. That would be so.
They're the kindest people.
They are. They're
Yeah.
so kind. My sister-in-laws are lovely people. And I would never want to say something like that because it's not something that would casually roll off their shoulders. It's something that would be incredibly cutting.
Well, yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was to me when we were married and you'd say stuff like that. I mean, let's be honest. It's not like you pull those punches with me. It's trial by freaking daggers and fire, you know? You did what? Like an idiot. I'm like, I'm sorry. I didn't know.
Oh my gosh, this episode is getting too real. This episode is too real.
This indicates the range that we all have. And also that like piece of us that like wants to say what it wants to say sometimes, you know? And I think we have to have, you got to have the allowance for people to be that way and know that it's not the summation of who they are. Like if you said something like that, you're like, oh my gosh, that's so stupid. You don't think my sisters are stupid. That thing was stupid and you're citing it. And that's kind of like we should have the liberality to kind of do that to some degree.
But I'm so mindful because they wouldn't hear it like that, and I would not want to hurt their feelings.
We're sensitive
you know,
people, you know.
Oh, that's what I'm
sensitive
saying.
Scandinavians. That's what it is. Yeah, you know. No, what is interesting is that if you were at this game night with my family, it was like my uncle, and you know the story. My uncle, who's hard of hearing, I mean, really hard of hearing. Okay. And then like my mom and the rest of us all there, and we're on guys and girls teams, and we're playing Pictionary. And so we're going, and it's back and forth, and their team is not getting it, and ours, we kept going, and we kept saying point, point, point. And he's doing this and keeps drawing, just takes his pen, just keeps going pop, 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 pop. And we're like, point, period, point, I like whatever, right? It finishes, and we turn over the card, and it was point. Okay, and we're like, well, we've been saying that. We've been saying it the whole time. But he's hard of hearing. That's why he didn't hear us say it. And my mom goes, I don't care if he's hard of hearing. We won. Like loses it. And we, to this day, we mock my mom for it. But at the same time, it's like that's just we all have that range sometimes. Where it's like the game's a game, and he didn't get it.
Yeah, right.
You know,
Right.
It's kind of hilarious.
Yeah. So all of that to say is you and I have really had to calibrate. And I told you the other day, sometimes holding that peace,
Yeah.
you know, like your peaceful nature, I've had to acclimate to it. And sometimes holding that peace is so stressful.
Yeah.
I get really stressed out. But like,
Yeah.
right? Like holding that peace is so stressful. And you said, and what did you say to me when I was like, being peaceful is going to kill me?
Oh, I told you that being violent is going to kill me. Because sometimes there's at such antagonism. And I think a lot of dentists would associate with this. Because I think more people probably grew up the way I did than you did in some ways.
We don't know.
We did. We do know. Okay.
Do we?
No, we don't know.
Take a poll in the comments.
Yeah. Yeah.
Put a 1 if
Did your
your
family
childhood.
choose peace or violence?
Yeah, 1 for peace, 2 for violence on your childhood.
Yeah. You know, there's there's a sense in which like I feel like I have to constantly have like reins almost, like if I let go of this too much, like we're gonna burn everything down to the ground, which isn't entirely accurate, right? Like it's not very trusting of you, but it can feel that way. In the same way that you're like, am I gonna kill us through complete peace? No, like I can.
I'm so peaceful, I lost my pulse.
Right. Like I will turn up if I had to turn up, and I'll do it.
Right, range.
But if it's not in the same, what we're really talking about is time to some degree.
Are
like
we?
Yeah, because your timing is different than my timing.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And so
Fair
I'm
point.
like, I will turn up, but I got to have the facts and I need to get this information. And then if I really believe this is what has to happen, then I'm going to go, nuclear on this person. And you're like, but I already know. My gut says this, so we're going to go. And it's just this like, there's a slight difference there. Now, that's not true for everyone. Some people will literally choose peace to kill themselves, right? Like that's how it'll end. Like I would never say anything to anyone, even if it was dead true, I would never do it, which isn't terribly healthy. But I think you and I have calibrated to believe the same thing about situations. We just have different timings around those things.
Good
And that's
point.
one of the hardest parts for you and I think we're getting better at. But it's a legitimate concern
Yeah.
for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think so. So if you think most people are really in the peaceful camp,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Why are you laughing?
I'm just laughing thinking about your childhood. I wish I was there.
You know, you know what? Maybe because we've had already this like tumultuous January. I was just telling Dylan this. I was like, I actually feel I feel pretty calm.
Oh, yeah, you're feeling good. Yeah.
Yeah, to the point of I feel more stressed out probably when there's a lot of manufactured.
It's like calm.
Yeah, I'm like, oh my gosh, just take me now,
To that point, I'm actually a lot more calm about things now too, despite how tumultuous and chaotic 2025 has been. But that's because of how much it's been, right? Like if there's one or two things, it'd be like, let me think about it. Let me see what's going on. But when it's like stacking on, you start to kind of be like, the signs are pointing towards we need to show up. We got to put some people in their place. We got to do what we got to do.
Right.
And so I feel more peaceful now about what has to be done because it's an overwhelming understanding of what's going on.
Okay, great.
That makes
All
sense.
right, so let's keep this conversation going around range. But if most people's primary area of comfort is kindness, peace, and love,
Okay.
let's talk about the other part, which is fuck around and find out.
And the people will find out in part 2.
In part 2.
So we're going to see you in part 2. Fafo.
I don't think people say that.
I did. That's what we do in my house. Thank you for listening and or watching the Dental and Mental Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode or any others for that matter, feel free to tap that subscribe button on YouTube, Apple, Amazon, as well as Spotify. While you're there, why not leave us a review, up to 5 stars? And if you're on YouTube, go ahead and leave us a comment. Let us know what topic you want us to discuss next.
If you like what you heard today and you want to be involved in the Thrive world from coaching to courses or just to connect with us, go to thethrivedentist.com.